and call your attention to the Open Meetings Act posted here in the City Council chambers. If you now please join me in rising for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Granquist.
Here.
Arns.
Here.
Merrill. McCarthy.
Here.
Murin.
Here.
Jackson.
Here.
Clausen.
Here.
Hildebrand.
Here.
Okay, with that, I would look for motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
Motion second. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Motion carries.
And then I would look for a motion to approve the full agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Motion carries.
Okay, that takes us to item number 22 on the council agenda under special presentations. And tonight I will read a proclamation for April 2022 designated as Fair Housing Month. Whereas April 11th, 2022 marks the 54th anniversary of the passage of the U.S. Fair Housing Law, Title 7 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968 as amended, which enunciates a national policy of fair housing without regard to race, color, creed, national origin, sex, familial status, and handicap, and encourages fair housing opportunities for all citizens. And whereas the Norfolk Housing Agency and the Norfolk Housing Development Division of the City of Norfolk are committed to highlighting the Fair Housing Law, Title 7 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968 by continuing to address discrimination in our community, to support programs that will educate the public about the right to equal housing opportunities, and to plan partnership efforts with other organizations to help assure every American of their right to fair housing. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Josh Moaning, Mayor of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, by the power vested in me, do hereby proclaim April 2022 as Fair Housing Month. Is there anyone in the audience here to receive the proclamation? There is.
Julie Bermuda, I'm the housing program manager with the Norfolk Housing Agency in the city of Norfolk.
Now it's your chance for speech. No. Those people are fine. All right, that moves us to item number 23 under public hearings and related action. I will open this public hearing to consider the redevelopment plan for the Geary redevelopment project. And to kick off discussion, we'll hear from Randy Gates, our city finance officer.
Yes, this is about the third time you had this plan in front of you. This was originally, let me find my notes here. Yeah, this was originally accepted by the Community Development Agency on February 22nd of 22. And that point was forwarded to the Planning Commission for their hearing and review and recommendation. That was done on March 8th, and they recommended on a 6-0 vote approval of the plan. The Community Development Agency heard information on the plan again at their March 21 meeting and recommended approval of the plan to the City Council. Dan and Connie Geary own various parcels located northeast of the intersection of Brosh and North 3rd Street, which I wish to redevelop. There's about 4.5 acres of property in this area owned by the Gearys. It was originally zoned I1, C1, and R3, but was rezoned to C2 at the March 7th council meeting with a mixed-use overlay. This area still needs to be replatted. Project is expected to be comprised of 3 phases consisting of constructing 2 apartment buildings with 10 apartments, 5 2-story commercial structures, all but one of which will have residential on the 2nd floor, and 5 condominiums. A total of 44 residential units are planned, and approximately...
Sir, can you speak up? We cannot hear you.
Is this any better?
Better.
Approximately 18 commercial units are planned, along with rehabilitation of an existing commercial building. Gary's plan to start phase 1 soon, which involves constructing the 2 apartment buildings to house Wayne State College students as part of the Growing Together Career Scholars Program. A commercial property will also be constructed as part of phase 1 with apartments on the 2nd floor. An existing commercial property will be rehabilitated as part of phase 1, and phase 1 also involves moving the former railroad bridge downstream to provide a pedestrian connection to existing trails in Johnson Park over the North Fork of the Elkhorn River. In addition to clearing and grading the site, the project involves extensions of 2nd Street and Winter Avenue, construction of parking, drives, sidewalks, extension of utilities, provision of landscaping, lighting, street furniture, etc. The plan provides up to $4.8 million of tax increment financing for the project, not to exceed TIF eligible expenses, which are currently estimated at approximately $3.2 million. The project is not economically feasible without TIF. Without TIF, it has negative cash flow. With TIF, cash on cash return is about 5%. I see the redevelopers are here tonight, and they or myself will be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Randy. Any questions, Randy? This is a public hearing, so anyone wishing to make comment can do so now. I will note that this proposal has been before the Planning Commission and the Community Development Agency a number of times at this point. I'm not seeing anyone wishing to come forward to make comment, and if that's the case, I will move to close the hearing and move to item number 24. Item 24, we'll look for a motion to consider resolution number 2022-9, approving the redevelopment plan for the Geary redevelopment project.
I'll make a motion to consider resolution number 2022-9, approving the redevelopment plan. Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion or comments on this, council? Again, we've heard it in a number of iterations prior to this meeting, and I think we're all excited to see the project move forward as it brings new residential opportunities in our downtown area, new mixed-use development, and commercial and economic development opportunities as well. So we appreciate the investment on the part of the Geary's, continued investment in our downtown area. If no further discussion, I'd ask for your vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Resolution 2022-9 is adopted.
Okay, that brings us to our regular agenda and item number 25. Would entertain a motion to consider ordinance number 5770, approving a zoning change from A, agricultural district, and RR, rural residential district, to I2, heavy industrial district, on properties generally located north of East Newcore Road and east of North 1st Street and of Victory Road. As a note, ordinance number 5770 passed on first reading only at the March 21st, 2022 City Council meeting.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion for consideration of ordinance number 5770.
Okay, motion and second. So on second reading of this ordinance, we will allow for public discussion, noting that 2 weeks ago we did have a full-fledged public hearing on this issue in which we heard about 2.5 hours worth of testimony. Again, our deliberations here at this body are governed by Robert's Rules of Order, and that includes time limits for each testifier, up to 5 minutes. We will place emphasis on order within these discussions. No emotional outbursts will be allowed, And we ask that any testifiers please focus on arguments or new points of discussion not already addressed at the public hearing. So, at this point, we will welcome any discussion from the public.
Good evening. My name
And there's
is,
a form in front of you if you could sign your
Oh,
name,
I will
please.
sign it.
And if you would, I would need a name and an address, please, listed on
Yeah.
that form.
All right. I think that formality has been taken care of. My name is Lane Schultz. I'm an interest party for the Becker edition. I'll have to apologize if anything that I've said was said in the last meeting with the 2.5 hours, and I'm sorry that you had to endure all that. That is a very, very long time. I'll give you a little bit of background about myself. I do own property in the state, or in actually Madison County. I own farmland between Battle Creek and Madison, and then also a house there at Becker Edition. Therefore, I feel that I'm qualified to say I got some skin in the game. So I don't like people coming up and saying things that, if they don't have a dog in the fight, they don't have anything to say. I'm going to take this a little different approach. My background is a geologist in geosciences with hydrogeology, environmental science, and so that's going to be the emphasis of what I talk about here this evening. So in my career, I've done everything from nuclear power permits to underground injection control to landfills to the Norfolk crush to alcohol permits. And so I get to be acting in a support role to our regulators, and then they make their decisions, much like you guys are doing here. So let's get to business. So I looked at the permit, and the first thing it says, of course, or not a permit, I guess it's an application. The permits will come later. It's agricultural, that's for sure. One thing that did catch my eye right away, and I'm sure that this has already been discussed, I'm sure it's been discussed with council, is that it does not meet your comprehensive plan. So let's go to the comprehensive plan on page 113. Forgive me for reading. Industrial development best located near major arterial roadways. Check. Industrial highways right there. You guys got it. Near the railroad. Yes, that's very good. Railroad corridors right there. Near areas with access to significant utility capacity. I can't speak to that. That's something that I don't know. So if there's any city services out there, I don't know. Areas that are generally flat, yeah, that's definitely there. And the thing that I have issue with is free of environmental concerns. So when I look at permits, I look at whether or not, when I look at permits, the same thing. And this is going to also be applied to the application. Is it really a good spot environmentally to locate an industrial sector where you have it? My argument is no. There's environmental concerns. And according to the your comprehensive plan, it should be free of environmental concerns. So what are they? Well, first of all, the groundwater issue is going to be huge. So as you know, hopefully you know, or I will discuss it, the geology there is a shallow aquifer. The actual water table, or the depth to the top of the water, I can't confirm, but from irrigation permits I see out there, it's around 11 feet. So that's not very good. That's definitely going to cause some environmental concerns down the road for you, and then almost certainly will have impacts on water rights for the Becker Edition. So be aware that in my state anyway, if a domestic use is impaired, the commercial and industrial use is shut down. I think that's really similar to Nebraska water right law. I'm not an expert in Nebraska water right law, but I do know a thing about South Dakota. So that is one issue I think is going to have to be addressed, and it will probably be done as I think Planner Grimes has mentioned in the actual building permit. So I asked the city engineer a couple times, email and a phone call for a site plan. My phone call nor my email was returned. Gets a 1 for customer service.
Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt. I failed to mention before that 5-minute time limit, and the yellow card means 1 minute left, and the red
Okay.
card means something. Okay, I just wanted to interject.
Did I just see a yellow card?
Yes, yes. So you have a minute
Approximately
and
30, or
more,
40
and a
seconds.
little bit more than that. Yeah.
Oh, all right,
Yep.
thank you. So I'll get to the next thing very quickly. We'll skip over the, the question I would have is 480 acres is quite excessive for an industrial park. I don't know why you need that much, but I guess it's considered that way. The other thing is going to be concerning is your overlay district for the flood map. So when you look at it, it says on the application that's a small area. Well, I believe this is the small area you're talking about. But if you actually go ahead and do look at the stuff that's done by the Department of Natural Resources, State of Nebraska, they have a much larger area. Why is that? Well, the firm panel has not been created for this area. So FEMA hasn't done anything. So they just put on what they have available. Now the Nebraska one is quite a bit larger, and why is that? Well, they do LIDAR, and they say this area here is a zone awareness area. Thank you. It should be considered.
Let's wrap up.
I
Yeah.
yield my 5 minutes to Mr. Schultz.
Norma Jean, well, you'll have your chance to speak if you'd like to speak, but we don't allow for allotting time to someone else. So if you'd like to speak, you'd have 5 minutes.
Robert's Rules of Order,
Yes.
and I can yield.
No argument about the Robert's Rules of Order for me. I wish you, as a council, to consider what your environmental impacts are going to be out there. You're talking about the largest potential monster places where there's going to be pollution. This isn't going to be just a little hog farm out there. This is going to be things that are greatly, greatly harmful to your health. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, next speaker. Evening, sir.
Good evening. My name is Jim Dishman. I live in Becker's Addition, and I have 2 questions for you, actually, maybe possibly 3. Is an omission of facts given to you by a party that is involved in the question of whether we should have this bean plant basically right on top of our neighborhood. If the omission of facts, is it considered a lie to you? Is it? Would you ask yourself, I am not as educated as the gentleman that was before me. I graduated with honors with the School of Hard Knocks. And common sense, country boys' common sense, is the only diploma I ever graduated with. Now, if we look at the moving of train cars, the gentleman that testified on behalf of Crush said there'd only be 1, possibly 2 trains coming in. a week. However, he didn't testify to the fact of the movement of cars being loaded, unloaded. And I don't know who represents the southern part of Norfolk. We lived on Michigan. We affectionately called it the Hood. And we done so because of all the drug raids on behalf of the State Patrol, the Norfolk PD, and other federal agencies. But we could hear train cars being switched. It sounds like thunder. And being switching right on top of us. A mile-long train being switched, loaded, unloaded. You certainly, in this town with a railroad, you have to be aware of the stretching of cars, the compression of cars, what that sounds like. And once you get a mile-long train, it'll last for minutes. How can someone get used to that? Someone can get used to a train coming through their town once a week. Absolutely. How can they get used to that in all hours of the day and night? Secondly, I ask that you, before you make a decision, go before the powers that be of Hy-Vee, Walmart, Menards. That was a swamp. That wasn't a floodplain. That was a swamp. I caught leopard frogs for catfishing when I was 10, 15 years old. I lived in Star Trailer Court. I don't know if you're old enough to remember where Star Trailer Court was. But that's where we caught our leopard frogs. They found it a suitable place to build. Landfill. We have 4-lane going up north on US 81. There's all kinds of fill that they probably don't have a clue where they're going to go with it. That would be thank you, ma'am. That would be a suitable place to be putting landfill, and they'd probably come close to giving it away. If Hy-Vee, Menards, and Walmart could build on a swamp, certainly this bean plant can be placed on a floodplain far enough away from our neighborhood to where it would be suitable and it would be agreeable for us to coincide with this plant. Something to consider, please. You have no idea what this means to us, how drastically is going to affect our lives. I invite you to come out one evening. I will provide, I used to be a competitive barbecuer. I invite each and every one of you to come out to my home and enjoy the quiet and the peace before you please make a decision and see how quiet it is. It's the reason why we bought that home. If you would please come out and enjoy our neighborhood. And I'm sure the other residents of our neighborhood would be more than glad to enjoy you. Thank you, ma'am. That's all I have to say. I hope you take me up on my offer.
Thank you, Jim.
I'm sure that you're going to approve this motion.
Sir, can you give us your name, please?
Jim Kime. Is this permitted under 27202 or 27203?
You'll have to explain the purpose of your question.
27202 is your District 1, 2, and 203 it's called a heavy industrial use. This is what's considered heavy industrial use.
Yes.
All right, I'm glad you said that. Because with that, additional conditions, stipulations, or restrictions also may be applied if deemed necessary for the protection of the public interest. Which means that you can attach conditions to this zoning change. And in the past, I've been told no conditions could be attached to this. But seeing how you told me it's heavy industrial, which is 27203, conditions can be attached to this. Will anyone argue with that point?
Val, can you weigh in on this, please?
Sir, are you reading that out of 27-203?
Yes.
That's a conditional use permit.
Sir, we need you to stay at the podium, please, for your...
Right.
That's right here.
Right. This does not need a conditional use permit. It's an outright permitted use.
So what you're saying is this is 27202.
Correct.
And the other thing, you're going to approve the zoning, correct? Now, next thing. The zoning does not include the roads. Is that right? Sir?
The zoning request?
The zoning request does not include roads. So why is it that you have to let him use First Street? You put in industrial highway, have him go down the industrial highway, go down around on Victory Road, use Victory Road and Newcore Road to access this. That takes all the traffic, not all, but most of the traffic off of First Street. You have turning lanes up there, drop down on Victory Road, and go into the plant. So what would wrong be? I mean, you don't have to, you're gonna prove this in one piece, yes. But you don't have to prove him to use that road, do you? Or is that a stipulation that you've agreed to?
What's before the council for consideration is a zone change request from the existing zoning designation to a new zoning designation.
I understand that, but what I'm asking is, the roads that he uses is not part of the zoning change, is it?
There's no relevance of the zone change request to the roads surrounding the area in question, if that's your question.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, roads are not part of the zoning request ever. It's the private property. However, when you look at our zoning map, the zoning goes to the center line of a road if there's different zonings on
Right.
each side.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm saying is, you don't have to.
Can you
prove-
speak into the microphone,
I'm
please?
sorry. You don't have to prove him to use First Street. You can actually make a stipulation to him after the zoning is approved to go down to Victory Road. Nick?
You have to direct your testimony to the
I know.
council,
it's
please.
you. But I just don't understand why you're trying to put roughly 500 trucks a day on First Street. And I want to take issue with some person over here last council meeting said, we're going to have to look at the problem we're going to have on Victory Road through that new housing subdivision. He's worrying more 30, 40 trucks a day going through there, and we got to worry about 500 trucks a day. I don't see where he gets any correlation to bring that up to the council even. I don't know who it was, somebody over here that mentioned that last council meeting. I think it was you. And I don't understand why you would even consider mentioning something like that, considering what we got to go through, considering that road was put in there, 4-lane industrial road, and this housing division is going in after the fact. That makes no sense to me. I'm s-
That was brought to the attention because it was a new ordinance put in place where trucks can drive through town.
I know that.
Okay, he was referencing that was part of it was okay at that time, but we said in the future we might pull there. And that was,
But he's talking about Victory Road. Victory Road is not part of your thing. Victory Road is put in strictly for the truck traffic coming off of 275, if I understand right. Is that correct?
I wasn't around at that time.
Okay.
I was used for now.
That's all I got.
Hello. I am Robert Johnston, that's Johnston for the record. I'm a soybean producer from Clearwater. I'm also a candidate for the 40th Legislative District, which is in your trading area. I served 10 years with the Nebraska Soybean Association. We lobbied for the profitability of the soybean industry. The soybeans are the #1 agricultural export in the nation. Soybeans are a huge export product for Nebraska. But the greatest way to enhance the value of soybeans is to crush them and feed the meal to livestock. Doing this would create economic benefits for Nebraska, and it would also create economic benefits for Norfolk. You have been presented an opportunity that may happen only once in your lifetime. Agriculture is the #1 industry in the state. Agriculture is the #1 industry in your trading area. When the agriculture industry does well, all businesses do well. I encourage you to vote yes so the construction of Norfolk Crush can move forward. Respectfully, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Robert.
Good evening. I am Jan Harris. My husband and I are neighbors to the proposed bean crush plant. Our property is within the 300-foot boundary that surrounds the proposed plant. We have expressed our opposition to the location of the bean plant in relationship to our neighborhood and our concerns about the drop in property values the moment this plant is approved, and the many negative effects to our well water levels and the general quality of life. Today, I want to speak to you about the issues that will affect the citizens of the city of Norfolk and anyone who drives the streets of Norfolk. Nick Bowdish has stated that the bean crush plant will be serviced by a 100-car unit train about once every 4 days. The approximate length of a 100-car unit train is 5,200 feet, nearly a mile. This train will likely move through town at about 5 to 10 miles per hour. So at an intersection such as Omaha Avenue, the crossing arms will drop as the train approaches and stop traffic. Then as the train crosses Omaha Avenue with traffic blocked for anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes or more, the traffic will back up for blocks. This will repeat itself at Michigan Avenue, Paswalk Avenue, Phillip Avenue, Madison Avenue, Norfolk Avenue, 5th and Brosh, 4th Street, 1st Street, Benjamin Avenue, Eisenhower, and Victory Road. These streets are main arteries of travel for many people, taking kids to and from school, getting to and from work, or simply to get across town. If an emergency, like a traffic accident, a fire, or a health medical emergency should occur while these streets are blocked, fire and rescue vehicles could be delayed for what could be someone's lifetime while traffic is snarled by the train. Once the train is loaded at the bean plant, it must make the return trip through town, since the crush plant is at the end of the line. The timing of the train is not predictable, as already stated by Nick Bowdish, as the railroad makes its own schedule. Then there is the increased truck traffic, 200 to 300 trucks per day per Mr. Bowdish, coming from the north on Highway 81 to the Industrial Road intersection, or from the south on Highway 81 through Norfolk, and again to the Industrial Road intersection. This is already a dangerous intersection with already heavy truck traffic to and from Nucor Steel, Norfolk Iron and Metal, and the Lewis Dreyfus plant. Some trucks will come in from the west using Highway 275 and again pass through the city using the 275 bypass and proceeding north on 13th Street through town. Other trucks will come from Stanton on Highway 24 or from the east on Highway 275 and then use the 275 business bypass, which will see increasingly heavy auto traffic with the eastward expansion of the new housing. After passing through the roundabout to Victory Road, some may use the industrial highway to First Street. But I wonder how many will ignore the road restrictions and continue north on Victory Road and across the restricted bridge and use Nucor Road westbound to the First Street bean plant entrance. This amounts to a lot of additional truck traffic for everyone who drives the streets in and around Norfolk to adjust to. So my point to all of the city of Norfolk is, just because you don't live next to the door to this plant, don't think it won't affect you.
Thank you, Jan.
Good evening. My name is John Moret. I'm from Brunswick, Nebraska. I'm a fourth generation family grain elevators operated primarily in northern Nebraska, Pierce as close as Madison, Nebraska, and then Wayne. We are big proponents of the project. We like it a lot. We feed hogs and raise turkeys, and the only complaint we have is that we wish it was closer to Brunswick, not Norfolk. I will also add that I've worked with Nick in Jackson, Nebraska. He is not foreign to Nebraska. He's ran that ethanol plant now for 5 or 6 years, and he's a good neighbor to those around. And unfortunately, this project does have neighbors, really nice folks behind me, that it's going to affect, but the pros outweigh the cons. So we urge you to support the project and rezone. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any further speakers?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Shane Widener, Nucor Steel. I'm the environmental manager there. So this is what it's like to talk to the Mayor and Council.
I think you recall.
Yeah, I do fondly recall some of those discussions. I'm here to make a few points for the project. Obviously, we're an industrial neighbor to the project. Nick and his company reached out to Nucor early and often in the project, asking for guidance and advice and basically the Nucor's take on the project. And our take on it is it's a wonderful industrial partnership, really. It's a partner out there in an industrial area that the mayor and council in this community have invested in over the years and continue to invest in. You know, from an environmental standpoint, it's something that I am very much keeping my eye on as well, and working with Nick and his company to bring that all together. Industrial plants of this size, and Nucor being included in that, don't operate in a vacuum. We rely on good data. We rely on good interactions with our partners across the way to make good decisions. So I look forward to that continued interaction with Nick as he and his company develop his environmental permits that he'll need. And trust me, he will need them. So the watchful eye of the government, I guess, for lack of better words, in that environmental process is real and relatively dramatic. As his neighbor will be watching that too and working with him, because what he does has some potential to affect what we do. So we want to make sure that that is all followed correctly, and I'm very confident that he will do that. And every indication from Nick thus far to Nucor's point has been very positive and forthright. So we look forward to that relationship continuing. I would make a comment about train traffic. I understand the concerns there, but I will remind the mayor and council that that's our lifeline. As you will sorely recall, the flood in 2010 took out that lifeline to this community and caused a great deal of angst for the industrial community. So any consideration to keeping that rail in place and active is extremely important to the industrial base to our northeast, including Nucor Steel. We use it every day. That's pretty much all I would have to say. If I put on my old ex-city hat, I was from an economic development standpoint. I don't see many projects personally that are much more presentable than this project, honestly. So I would offer that up for what it's worth. That's 31 years of experience in city government. But I know your decision making is difficult here this evening and has been, and there's many concerns to consider. But in the large scope of the whole project and how it affects the community and the area and all the beauty that can come from an economic development project of this magnitude are very important to consider too. So that being said, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have, but that's my 2 cents.
Thanks. Any further speakers?
Mayor Moaning and the fellow city councilmen, I am Jim Miller, a crop and livestock producer from Belden, Nebraska. 2 weeks ago I spoke and I talked about the economic benefits of this plant, and so I will not bring that up again tonight. But at the last reading there was concern around the number of trucks entering the soybean plant. Currently, where I deliver my soybeans and pick up soybean meal, on the soybean meal side, the majority of the trucks in line for meal delivered beans first. So it's not like one truck delivers beans and a different truck comes in and picks up meal. So these trucks are going to be coming in with a load and leaving with a load. So I think that probably helps change the numbers a little bit of the number of trucks entering the plant. There was also concern among the neighbors about how life wasn't going to be the same after this plant comes in next door. When I got home that evening, I went home and I looked up the Madison County zoning website and the area listed as living in the country, and I would like to read for you a few lines from that. And I quote right out of your zoning website from Madison County. The peace and tranquility people often associate with in the countryside draw many people to rural areas. Generally, what they find is that they only have traded the benefits and drawbacks of city living for those living in the country. And just like the urban landscape, things do change in the country. It is important to realize the land surrounding your property is unlikely to remain the same indefinitely, and the view from your property may change. I hope you will find it in the best interest to make this zoning change so we can add value to a commodity we produce right here in northeast Nebraska, and don't have to continue to haul our beans out of state and let someone else reap the benefits of further processing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Any further speakers?
Good evening, Josh and council. My name is Jason Coles. I'm the Northeast Regional Manager of Nebraska Farm Bureau. Farm Bureau is the largest voluntary farm organization in the state. We represent 55,000 members across the state, farm families and ranch families. Agriculture is basically the foundation of Nebraska. 1 in 4 jobs are directly related to agriculture here in Nebraska. I'm also a hog producer, and I also raise crops. And I know a lot of commodities go to our neighbor in Iowa, Cargill, and other facilities in neighboring Iowa. And it would be great to have a local crush plant here in the northeast corner of Nebraska. As I said, I'm the regional manager. I represent the 12 counties in northeast Nebraska. And there isn't a county that I've talked to that said that they wouldn't be very supportive of something like this coming into the region. So I guess I stand in support of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Good evening, my name is Riley Stoltz, and I work for the Alliance for the Future of Ag in Nebraska. I grew up here in Norfolk, went to high school here. I still have siblings that go to school here. We live just north of Norfolk, closer to Hayter than where the proposed project's at. But just coming to remind you that this would be a great project for Norfolk. Whenever we can see more economic dollars through the local city, it's great for our school districts. It's great for Northeast Community College, which is where I attended for 2 years before going on to the university. And just would be great for economic development and our local farmers here that also raise livestock. So I would encourage you to support the the zoning changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Riley. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hello, my name is Jeff Everson. I am a part of a 5th generation farm and feedlot in Belden, Nebraska. We raised corn, soybeans, and cattle for many years. The majority of our soybeans are currently delivered to one location. In the past 25 years, our bean yields have risen without any increase of end users, therefore creating long lines at current facilities. With increasing labor costs, it's important that our trucks can get in and out fast and efficient. For example, it's common that our loaded trucks may sit up to 4 hours in line before they get unloaded. I feel Norfolk Crush will benefit every person in this area involved in agriculture. Other facilities that Nick Bowdish and his team are involved with are modern looking, neat, clean, and have a classy appearance. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hello, I am Garrett Graham from Hardington, Nebraska. I am a soybean farmer. I would like the council to think about the economic possibilities this has for not just currently, but future generations. The opportunity for rural families is sometimes very bleak in Nebraska, and I think this has the opportunity to help people in a much wider area than just the immediate neighborhood of concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Garrett. Anyone else wishing to speak?
I'm Norma Jean Wilbur, and all I can tell you, Nick, is I've already paid the retainer fee for the attorney who is going to make sure that this is not going to be put next door to our place. I assure you, I don't care if you build it, but you're not going to build it by us. Thank you.
Thank you, Norma Jean. Anyone else wishing to speak? Not seeing anyone. Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen of the council, my name is Robin Whitney. Again, I approach you having recently moved here from Minnesota about a month ago. In doing so, I can see what you guys, this decision that you have in front of you. I understand the farmer's point of view, and they have a very valid point. It is a very valid point that it is going to help the economy for Norfolk. The thing that basically is at the very heart of it is if the plant could be moved somewhere else on the property. That's all the neighbors are asking. We've given you some suggestions tonight, and I think, you know, if you would just take into consideration that, you know, it is going to affect our quality of life. I'm for the plant. I know what it can do for Norfolk. I know what it can do for the farmers. But I want to protect my interest too in the house that we just purchased. The neighborhood is an awesome neighborhood. Please, when you consider this, please consider asking that the plant be moved in a better location and not so close to these people's homes. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Robin. Any other speakers?
My name's Keith Langen, and last Sunday, my wife and I went to Omaha. On the way to Omaha, we decided to stop in Fremont because Nick was talking about the Fremont plants in a neighborhood. Well, it's not in a neighborhood. Unless you want to call pipe plant, elevator, rail yard a neighborhood. I guess you could do that. I found 2 houses. And they're not the best houses. I think one was probably abandoned in the neighborhood. These are the 2 houses, if you want to take a look. Here's the rest of the neighborhood. I told you they were in a neighborhood. That was a lie. I'm sorry. He's feeding us full of crap. So then I thought, well, I can pull up an app on my phone and do a decibel level reading. Sitting in the car, I pulled up the app. This was the humming noise from the plant. 74. That's pretty high. Then all of a sudden a train came by. Whoa, jumped up to 87. Pretty high. That's going to be 24/7 in our neighborhood. I also ran this off. The main part of the article is the center, where I kind of highlighted it. Does everybody have one? I think I made enough copies. Says the document identifies 24-hour exposure levels of 70 decibels as a level of environmental noise. Reminder, 74. Okay. Measurable hearing loss over the lifetime. Okay. Decibel levels 55 decibels outdoors and 45 indoors are identified as preventing activity interference and annoyance. These levels of noise are considered those which will permit spoken conversation and activities such as sleep, working, recreation, which are part of a daily human condition. That's what we have to live with. I don't think you guys want to live with that, do you? I mean, I know you don't. You're not stupid people. We all have common sense. It goes a long way. The level of decibels is identified for all areas in order to prevent hearing loss. We're all going to go deaf because industrial plant. I get it. It's going to bring money to Norfolk. You know, he must have called half the farmers he knew to come in and testify. I get that. I understand their point. I grew up on a farm. We raised hogs. My dad was a feed salesman. I hauled soybean meal to a lot of farmers. 50-pound bags, by the way. I get it. But these guys are from Randolph and Belden. There's a train track up there. Beautiful train track. There's a beautiful elevator right next door. Down to Osmond and the whole corridor. They could use that. Norfolk's still going to reap the benefits. They're going to send people up there to wire it, to use it. They're going to have people living here that are going to drive up there to go to work. It's just, it's not hard to figure out that they don't need to put it right next to a neighborhood. And also, I know that there's a pipe plant that was going to go in out here on the east edge of Norfolk, which pulled out evidently for some reason or another. And I know the city had put natural gas in there, and it wasn't a cheap deal. But it's right up to that place. I don't know why they can't use that place. How do people run boilers? They're going to be running a boiler, natural gas. So they're going to have to pipe it another, 2.5 miles? Doesn't make sense. The railroad track is right next to the old pipe plant where they leveled the ground already. The space in that one at Fremont was, maybe 3 or 4 blocks. These guys are talking hundreds of acres. Doesn't make sense. Common sense. It's real simple, guys. Common sense. You know, as far as how big it is, I think they're planning some expansion that they're probably not even telling us about. You don't need that much space. They're going to grow. They're going to make more noise. They're going to be more trucks, more train cars. They talked about a little green space. That's not going to stop noise. They need a 40-foot concrete wall to slow that noise down, and that's not going to stop it. One more quick point. You hear this? That's my front yard this morning. I got another one.
Okay. Your time's up, sir. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay.
Please vote against it. No, you can keep them up there so you can see them.
Hello, Council. How are you doing?
Evening.
Kind of a tough situation we're in. My name's Richard Dungan. My wife Mary and I live out at 4400 Pierce Drive in the Becker Addition. We've lived there for 20 years and have really enjoyed the countryside. I was out of town 2 weeks ago when the initial meeting took place, and so I missed all of that 2.5-hour meeting. And yet I did have the opportunity to call Corey, and he filled me in some on what took place. I also had the opportunity to talk to my neighbors. And obviously this is a huge controversial issue. Some of the concerns I have, as I also talked to a county commissioner, is I'm perplexed how our county commissioner only heard about this potential plan 3 days before it was ever made public. I mean, that perplexes me. How did this get this far down the tracks? Forgive the pun. How did it get this far without we becoming more aware of what was taking place, to where a better site could have taken place and been selected? And as I understand, there's also 3 sections of land there that are involved. Why couldn't the section to the east, or to the west, excuse me, immediately south of our addition, why couldn't that be left as resident or rural? And then move the plant further that way, even if it does require landfill. I mean, those are my questions that I have, and I know that we've already had one public reading, and so that's been passed, and now it's in your hands. But I would like to make an appeal to you on behalf of my neighbors and myself to reconsider this plan. I've been in the corporate world for 30 years. I have plenty of experience in business, and I understand the value of economic development. I really do. But it seems to me like this got put on a fast track without anybody being aware of it. And I think that's probably not appropriate. And you gentlemen represent the public. And we in the country, we're represented by our county commissioners. And they didn't even hear about it until 3 days before it was going to be made public. And then on top of that, they were asked not to speak about it. I don't understand that. That concerns me. Thank you for listening to me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Richard. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, hearing no one, we will close public discussion and move to council discussion on the topic. I had a couple questions given the testimony, and I wanted to start by asking a developer, Nick Bowdish, to come forward and talk a little bit about the process of environmental permit application. We touched on this a couple weeks ago, but there were some questions tonight about how specifically that all works, how robust is the process that you have to follow as a developer of this facility to meet all the environmental requirements that are set forth through state and federal government. Can you talk about that a little bit, please?
Sure. So the major permit is comes from the Clean Air Act, Title V air permit. It's the regulations are ultimately enforced by the Environmental Protection Agency, but at the state level, the Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy, NDEE, led by Director Jim Macy, handle all of that application activity and enforcement of the EPA law. So similar to what Mr. Widener shared in his testimony, part of that process, when you apply as industry for that construction air permit, is to take into account all of the neighboring industry. So in this situation, it definitely includes Nucor and then the other industry on the south side of Industrial Highway. So all of this information comes in both from our project engineers and from the State Department of NDE into ultimately what I would refer to as an air dispersion model. And that model has to demonstrate that at the property boundaries, our facility meets all of the federal air quality requirements. And I can stand before you this evening and tell you that our company is well on our way into that modeling. It is not 100% complete this evening, but we are getting very close to having the modeling complete. As of last week, the only information we needed yet was to come in from NDE to incorporate in the model. But as you've seen on the site plan, the site itself meets all of the zoning requirements as laid out in the regulations today. And at our property boundaries, our facility will absolutely meet the federal air quality requirements.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Any other questions for Nick while he's before us?
Can we ask questions, John?
No, I've closed public discussion. Thank you, Nick. The other question I had related to water table. There was discussion about water table concerns. I see that we have representatives of our lower Elk Natural Resources District here tonight. I think they've had some discussions on examination of this facility. I'd invite them to come forward and talk a little bit about impacts and implications of a facility like this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mike Soshek with the General Manager of the Lower Elkhorn Natural Resource District. I brought my Assistant Manager, who is my Acting Water Department Manager too, to really get into the technical details of the aquifer. Some of the things that were mentioned earlier dealt with water law, water policy. I have had multiple phone calls with landowners in the area. I've also had meetings with Mr. Bowdish on the policy, the process. And so ultimately I went through our rules and regs. Everything is, it meets everything that we need to see. There's really nothing the NRD will be able to do. It's administrative processes that we just need to walk through. Visiting with Mr. Bowdish, he does have options on 3 irrigation wells that are currently there. And I'll bring Brian up here to start talking that discussion on what those wells are, what they do, and how it affects the aquifer. And then we also have a monitoring well almost neighboring the property, and we can discuss a little bit of that and the technical details of what the aquifer looks like. So, Brian?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Brian Bruckner, Assistant Manager, Acting Water Resources. And so, as Mike mentioned, we have some information, technical information that's I think is important for you to know. We were contacted by the project developer, the proposed project developer early on. And of course, anytime there's a proposed water use, it's going to catch our attention. The natural resources districts are responsible and have the authority to regulate groundwater in Nebraska, and it's definitely something we take seriously. As Mike mentioned, this land, and as you're aware, currently is in agricultural production and is irrigated. Okay, there are 4 registered active irrigation wells on lands in sections 1 and 2. The irrigation well in section 1 is a newbie. It's been used 1 year. But the wells in section 2 have been there for some time. And as Mike mentioned, we also, and it's a good coincidence in this situation, we also have an observation well, which is an irrigation well, privately owned irrigation well in section 3, which is just across the road to the west of this proposed property. On that location, we have a long period of record where we have been collecting annual depths to groundwater measurement to monitor changes in groundwater inventory, groundwater quantity over time. So our period of record on that particular well goes back to 1977. And so in this particular area, the base of the aquifer, or the bedrock ranges from 70 to 110 feet. Pumping water levels on the newest irrigation well in particular is at pumping is 30 feet. Okay, its static water level of that particular well is 11 feet, and so subsequently there is capacity below the drawdown of saturated aquifer. There's extra inventory in the aquifer that could be used for beneficial purposes. Okay. So these, as I mentioned, these are irrigation wells that pump approximately 800 gallons per minute each during the irrigation season, which varies by the year, by the climate, by the rainfall, but generally runs, from July till sometime in September. Okay. Going back to that observation well, that period of record on that particular location, it has ranged in that period of time from its deepest point of 18.2 feet, which was in 2014. Its shallowest was 14.5 feet in 1984. During that time frame, there have obviously been periods of drought. 2012 is one that sticks in most of our memories. In 2014 or thereafter is when it recorded its lowest level, and it subsequently recovered. Okay, when the precipitation recovers, becomes more normal. And so I think that's worthy of your consideration. So another thing to point out is we also, since 2018, have water use information from the irrigation wells. All high-capacity wells in the lower Elkhorn NRD are required to now have a monitoring device or a flow meter. Those wells have had flow meters in place since 2018, and so we have the information on the water use that we can use in comparison to what this proposed facility might use. And given that those wells are currently not subject to any limit, we do have a 4-year period of record, and the water use for the proposed project would in essence be in close comparison or be very close to what irrigation use would be. And so all things being stated, our preliminary analysis is that this proposed project would not have any negative impact to groundwater supplies in the local area.
Okay.
Any questions?
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Brian. Any questions? No, thank you. Okay. Council, further discussion.
I'd just like to comment on something from the very beginning. I think this got off to the wrong foot last week, is that we were here for a zoning change, and our zoning change requires a 100-foot setback. Nick Bowdish has went above and beyond and went to exceed what we already have. And I can't answer to your guys' county roads. I can't answer to anything that some of you are asking questions of us. One gentleman asked, who represents you? Well, you had representation here last week. They chose not to speak on your behalf for or against either party. Looking at other plants that Mr. Bowdish has done, I've done my research in the last 2 weeks since we were here last. I don't have any reason to believe that he's not going to be a good neighbor to you. You know, his plant is state of the art. He has to meet the minimum air requirements. He's doing a good job of trying to minimize the noise with his vacuum system being enclosed. He is trying to, with his vacuum system, also not have a dusty environment. We just heard from the lower NRD, the water usage is sufficient. I can't speak on, like I said, I can't speak on behalf of the roads. That's not our decision, is what the roads are and what they're going to do. But it is to meet, up here tonight, is to meet our zoning changes. And honestly, Nick has exceeded what our setbacks are on our zoning changes. So I don't think he's trying to be a bad neighbor. I can say that I believe a gentleman had spoke from what the country living was, as far as from the Nebraska Farm Bureau, is that the only thing that's certain in the country or in town is change. And I think change is a good thing. This could be good for a lot of people. This could benefit Northeast Nebraska. This could benefit Norfolk. I think we're needing to look at this from a wider broad of the advantages of that this could have. And I understand this is going to inconvenience some in the crowd tonight. And I feel for you, but I do feel that this is a good change for Norfolk, Northeast Nebraska. He's meeting the minimum requirements. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other comments?
I'm just going to hit on one little topic that seems to keep coming up too, and how soon we knew, and how soon maybe the county commissioners knew, or how soon anybody really knew. And I think probably all of us could say we had very short notice also, because that's not really, that really wasn't the information that was needed for us. The landowners really only had to come up for a zoning change to I-1, and not, Nick wouldn't even have to be here. Nick wouldn't have to say that that's what's going in there. They could just know on their own that, hey, we have a possible potential buyer if we get this changed to I-1. And I don't know what everybody else would think, but being pretty darn close to Nucor or Norfolk Iron and Metal or Louis Dreyfus, I know Louis is a little bit further away, and so is Iron and Metal, but you probably wouldn't hardly bat an eye, not even knowing what maybe those landowners had in store. So I can speak for myself. I had very little notice that soybean plant was going in, but that really wasn't the topic. The topic is landowners wanting to change their use to I-1, and if that would happen, they can, if it's there, Nick could actually put in that plant without telling any of us at all. So just keep that in mind. I don't know who else knew way ahead of time. Nick probably knew, but as for me, I had no idea either, and I think most of us on council, or probably all of us on council, had no idea until shortly before it came in front of everybody at the same time. I think maybe the news broadcast was the time I heard about it also.
Thank you, Councilman. Any further comments?
I'd just like to state at last city council meeting, I kind of said I was frustrated about the situation, how this all went about. And I think the frustration stemmed from the fact that our I-1 code has never been tested. And when we did finally test it, it failed. And I think that's where the frustration is. And I'm not, and this frustration is not pointed at anybody because we've never tested this code before. And I feel like it let down both the industry and the residents out there simply because it only had a 100-foot setback. And so I know moving forward there will be discussions. I can't state what those discussions are because we'd only be speaking for myself, and I can't speak for everybody here. I can't speak for our staff either. But I know there will be ongoing conversations with county commissioners about, you know, how are we going to, because there are going to be growing pains with the roads and whatnot if this passes tonight. And so I know those conversations will be had. So it's not, there is ongoing, and I know Nick would be aware of that too, that it's going to be a moving picture, but some of that stuff is not what we're here to discuss about tonight. So I just want to put that out there that we have to look at this, and I think we do need to look at that code and our zoning code and how that's set up. I mean, I look at commercial code. When commercial goes against residential, there's automatic and/or clause where you either have a 30-foot buffer and/or privacy fence. We don't have any of that. I mean, and that's just commercial against residential, not industrial against residential. So that's something we'll have to look into as we're, as these growing pains continue to happen to our community, because we're moving out in the country. I mean, it's just a matter of time when things happen like this moving forward, because the communities continue to grow. So I'm sorry that our code puts you guys in this situation tonight. So, but it is the code, and it is what we have right now, and that's what we're working with.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other comments? Okay. I think there's a common narrative through a lot of these comments that in reality, even though there are several things to consider in a proposal like this, the ultimate judgment from the council is in regards to the zoning change request at hand. And the fact of the matter is the code as it exists allows for this type of facility to be built with certain setbacks put in place. I know that discussions to some of Shane's comments has led to talks about things that can be done for buffering and screening and some accommodations to respect neighbors' concerns about the proximity of the facility to their homes. And I hope those discussions will continue. And I think the developer has engaged in those in a good faith effort to be a good neighbor. And should this move forward, I think those talks will continue. And it's my hope that there's some kind of balance to be reached to strike accommodation to allow for a harmonious coexistence in this case. I will note, if there's no further discussion or comments or questions from the council, that this is second reading of the ordinance. On third reading, there is no, given our code, there is no public or council discussion allowed. So as a note, I think you all realize that, but I wanted to state that for public record. So, anything else, council, before we move to a vote? Okay. Seeing and hearing no further comments, I will ask for a short title, please.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Madison County, Nebraska, amending the zoning district map of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and providing for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Okay, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance number 5770 carries on second reading.
Your Honor, in light of that there's no discussion by public or council on third reading, I'll make a motion that we suspend the rules and pass this on third.
I will second that.
Motion and second to suspend the rules and approve on third reading. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance number 5770 carries on third reading.
Okay, that moves us to item number 26 on your council agenda. We look for a motion to consider approval of ratification of resolution number 2021-33, adding stop signs to control all four directions at the intersections of Norfolk Avenue and 2nd Street and Norfolk Avenue and 3rd Street.
Your Honor, I'll offer for consideration approval of ratification of resolution number 2021-33. Second.
Motion and second, and for some background on this, Steve Ramus, our Public Works Director, please.
Mayor and Council, back in summer of 2020, early summer of 2021, actually, we had JEO conduct a traffic study in the downtown area that included Madison Avenue, Norfolk Avenue, and Brosh, and went from 1st Street to 7th Street. as a function of that study, one of the outcomes there was that the signals at 2nd and 3rd Street are non-warranted signals. And in light of that, with other conversation in the downtown area about trying to slow down traffic, get some of the truck traffic that's moving through downtown out of downtown, and then also just looking at future development, active transportation, bicyclists, public in the downtown area, bringing the pocket park on at 3rd and Norfolk. We went ahead and presented to council the concept of a traffic signal study to bag the signals at 2nd and 3rd and monitor those intersections for a period of time. That signal study was made in large part possible by technology that was installed at 1st Street and Norfolk Avenue, 4th and Norfolk Avenue, and 7th and Norfolk Avenue back in April of 2021. The study that is attached to the agenda item is the summary of that. What this did was we looked at the 6 months of traffic data prior to bagging the signals, and then we looked at the data between roughly October 5th of last year was when we bagged them, and about the end of February. And that's the data that's been presented here. The study that was done, the downtown study that was done that identified that the signals were non-warranted, indicated that we would see, by going to 4-way stop controlled intersections there, that we would see during the peak activity, we would see a reduction in, or an increase in delay, I guess would be the best way to say that, during those peak times at those intersections. The data that we gathered here over the last year would support that by removing those signals, we did see an increase in delay in the corridor, upwards of, went from 23 to 49 seconds on the eastbound, and we went from 30 seconds to 43 seconds westbound. That change of about 23 to 14, 15 seconds is due to the fact that traffic is slowing down. So it's also, there was a forced stop there obviously at 3rd and 2nd, which is part of that slowing down. But so the data from the study does match what we anticipated we would see as a function of the earlier traffic study. And that's a change in what we call level of service of those intersections from roughly an A to either a low B or high C. It just depends on the actual day and the volume of traffic moving through there. So we saw about a 1 level delay or increase in intersection delay there. Overall, I think it accomplished I think what we were looking for, and that was redirecting some of the heavier truck traffic that was moving through downtown, slowing down traffic in the downtown area, increasing pedestrian safety. If this was to pass, we would look at, in doing some painting and doing some signing to allow or encourage bicyclists through that downtown area in a much safer environment than what it has been recently. So I guess without digging too deep in there, if there are questions about anything that was presented, Dick Clyde is here. At the last time we brought this conversation up, one of the questions that was brought up was how the seeing impaired would be able to interact with those intersections. And so Dick Clyde is a member of the seeing impaired or blind community here in Norfolk. He walks quite extensively, has a seeing eye dog, and he would be happy to come to the podium and provide some comments about those intersections if so desired.
Yes, we can open to public discussion, sir. If you'd like to come forward, please do. Good evening.
First of all, I'll tell you, I have about 2 degrees of vision that's blurry. I've lost over 70% of hearing in one ear and 50% in the other. So sight and hearing is my big thing. As far as your traffic laws, I worked for DMV for 25 and a half years, and I've walked with a dog for 27 years. So I've had a lot of it. The 4-way stop sign is the best thing in the world for me. Everybody has to yield to me. Go to a red light, a regular red light. If I get hit, what's that guy gonna say that light was? I can't see it, so he's gonna say it's green. So when you did, was it Brosh Avenue and took the signal lights out, I walked that a lot because I have the right of way. There's lots and lots of problems in town. And I bite my tongue a lot, as Steve knows, and when I can't bite it no more, I call him. But I invite anybody to get a hold of me, walk 10 blocks downtown with me, bring a paper and a pad. You wouldn't believe what the dog does for me. If I had to walk with a cane through downtown, it'd take me a week. Impossible, because there's so many things there. Different locations, different things. He zips me by it. We get by pretty good. But as far as those stop signs, it couldn't be any better for us. So don't worry about us cane-wise or otherwise. We step off the curb, that car has to yield to us. And I have had no close calls there. Very seldom there's over 1 or 2 cars going through. And even with him, if I come up to a regular signal light, I have to use my hearing, supposedly, and what side I have to figure out what traffic is moving. And the problem with that is getting worse and worse. You have cars that come up to a stop sign, they shut down. You can't hear that car. Now we're coming out with electric cars. You can't hear them cars. So it's getting worse and worse and worse that way for us, and we have to keep going back for more training with our guides just to try to counteract that. And as far as walking, I walk downtown most of the time in the downtown area because of dog problems. You can walk by a fence where there's a dog. A human and a dog gets along fine. You take your dog down there, and a dog, this is my property. And I have been attacked by pit bulls. I've been attacked by other dogs. In fact, about 1 week ago, I had a loose dog downtown between 3rd and 4th Street. Today, I had a dog at 5th Street, but he was on a leash. But the one downtown was not on a leash. We had a problem. And the problem is, if they get into it with my dog, and my dog doesn't work anymore, I just lost an $83,000 dog, and I have to go back and get a different dog, because it can ruin them that quick. So I quit walking on most of the residential areas just because of that reason. And the police department is doing better. I see the dog catcher out, and there's things in the paper, but there's a long ways to go. But as far as that intersection, it's perfect for me.
Okay.
Any questions, I'd be glad to answer. Like I say, contact me anytime. I'd gladly go for a walk with you.
Can you state your name for the record again, sir?
Dick Clyde,
Okay.
C-L-Y-D-E.
Very good. Thank you for those perspectives. Any questions for
Dick,
Mr.
I'll
Clyde?
I'll ask you a question because I brought it up initially on the stop signs versus stoplights and the beeping signal. And just give me your perspective on the beeping signal that indicates for you to walk or not.
Actually, if you want my perspective on the beeping signal, the chirp lights, they're great. Norfolk has a long ways to go. I can go from the hospital all the way down Norfolk Avenue, and there's not two of them alike. One, the sign goes on one side, one it goes on a different side. 18th Street, I just went through that the other day. Norfolk Avenue is 3 lanes there. 18th Street's just 2 lanes. You have a walk light, which I can't see, but a button, to go across 18th Street. If you want to go across Norfolk Avenue, you better run. There's no light there. 4th Street has a cuckoo going north and south, nothing east and west. Some of them, the button on the poles, a lot different. 5th Street, you have a walk sign, there's no buttons. So every one of them is really different. In fact, Steve's working with me on one right now that I've almost got hit 4 or 5 times, and we're gonna get it straightened out.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Clyde. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Anytime.
Anyone else wishing to make comment on this issue?
You guys are having a long night. My name is Amy Renter. I am the owner of Magnolias at 432 West Norfolk Avenue. So I'm between 4th and 5th Street. And my business, Magnolias, opened at that location thanks to Shane's help in 2016. Wow, what tremendous growth we've seen downtown. So many new neighbors, like Andrew's business. Love it there, and I'm very excited to hear Mr. Clyde. I haven't met him. I've almost chased you down the street a couple times to visit with you about your perspective on the streets, and we try to keep our flowers of magnolias off the sidewalk for Mr. Clyde. Couple things. I sent out a letter that all of you received with 37 signatures from fellow business owners downtown. I gathered them as the president of the Norfolk DNA, the Downtown Norfolk Association, currently my volunteer position and by vote. I also, on the document, made sure I gathered people's signatures that were key to those specific corners, and their observations are all positive as business owners and employees of those businesses. The people who are negative seem to me, and this is my personal observation, that they are the people who are used to using Norfolk Avenue as a corridor to get from east to west for our homes, our living, shopping, going to the grocery store. As one person commented, I'm leaving my home in downtown Norfolk near the fire station to get to Hy-Vee East, and I can't get there fast now. I'm very irritated. But he did have to concede that the route of Madison or the route of Brosh could also move him along just as easily if he changed his habit. So a lot of things going on tonight involve change of habits and change of our lifestyles over the course of the years. Things always change. I would like to give 4 observations of my own. Downtown, and I've lived here all my life, except for 4 years with my husband in the military. Downtown has been historically used by locals as a corridor to access the east-west side of town, and for it to become safe and walkable for entertainment, service, and retail district that I, as a business owner, desire, and other fellow business owners. We need safety and slower traffic. So there's faster access. It's proven. I think Steve has documentation proving Madison only has 1 stoplight, I think, if you're trying to move through that corridor quickly. Whereas Norfolk Avenue had several. So that would be a change of habit, perhaps. Benjamin is way up there, but it's an option. Omaha Avenue is farther south. It depends what you're doing. It's a habit change, and sometimes change is uncomfortable, but facilitates progress. Number 2, the stop signs do experience car backups, but they move through steadily and quickly, says the business observers at these intersections, specifically the Gallup Pop and Delights, who just moved there and is with a nice full view of the whole street, is watching everyone move through at school, end of school days. Number 3, daily walkers downtown feel safer stepping off of a curb when they know people at stop signs are obligated to stop. I'm remaking the point Mr. Clyde made. They have to look and give the walker a right of way. So that is very helpful, I think, because stoplights kind of put you in the zone, and you might just be moving through a color of green and not paying attention to your surroundings, especially since there's so many new things happening downtown. And number 4, if you back up into possible oncoming traffic that you can't see, the traffic is not moving at a fast rate. They have just made a complete stop. They have not possibly just gunned through a yellow light, which I've witnessed it. myself. Note, we are just now getting used to these signs. I think it would be a shame to pull them and put the lights back when everyone is just now getting their head wrapped around the new normal of the stop sign as it's been there. And I know people have ran those stop signs again from zoning out, but I hope it's creating a new habit. I think we've had them longer than 21 days. Is that the supposed habit creation time? Not sure if that's true or not, but those are my personal observations and takeaways. And I believe that a letter was also given to you from Lacey Porn, the former Downtown Norfolk Association president. Did everyone receive that?
Yes.
Awesome, good. So she's in favor of as well, and other business owners. But I appreciate your time and consideration of that. I like it. I'm so proud of downtown. I'm so excited to be there. And I'm really a proponent of people being able to walk slowly, carefully, take in their surroundings, enjoy, and come to us from other communities and bring their money, right? We're all in favor of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hello, my name's Scott Adams. I own Ravenwood at 402 West Norfolk Avenue. And I didn't think I had anything to talk about, and that turned out that was what I needed to talk about. I haven't seen much difference. Like I said, I'm just past 4th Street, so we get some traffic from 4th Street and we get some traffic coming through east-west on Norfolk Avenue. But I haven't seen much change coming through the stoplights at 2nd and 3rd. The one thing I do notice, and somebody actually had to point it out before I noticed it, was, as happens with many stoplights, sometimes somebody sitting at a red light suddenly realizes they're at the pole position of the NASCAR 500. And when that light turns green, they gun it. And by a stunning coincidence, they usually don't have a muffler on their car. And so that has stopped. And that's one of those things, and again, I think I attribute myself to the stop signs. You know, they're gonna have to stop in one block as opposed to going through stoplight at 4th, 3rd, 2nd. So I think it's been a real positive change, and I'm really in favor of it.
Thank you, Scott. Anyone else wishing to speak on this?
I guess I just have one comment, and I've brought this up before. The stop sign will be on the island in the middle.
There'll be a stop sign on the island in the middle, and there'll be a stop sign out on the sidewalk or behind the curb as well. And those will be the ones that are, I think the ones that we have in the medians right now are LED. They have an LED battery operated or solar operated. The ones that'll be up behind the curb will still be LED, but there'll be a hardwired AC into power.
That's the comment I guess I get from most people is they like that LED.
Yeah.
It's just a second reminder that there is two
Right.
stops.
LEDs, there's been a lot of research on those, and those LED lights, stop signs, do stop. What they say is they stop up to about 90% of those drive-throughs that might occur. Somebody's not paying attention, and that's very significant.
I've heard nothing but positive. I was against it in the beginning until you showed me on paper, and then started talking to more businesses and citizens in my ward, and heard nothing but positive about it. Makes it more relaxing, and they feel safer with driving downtown.
Either.
Steve, well, I just got a question there on that same topic, I think, or the same thing on the intersections, but if this passes tonight, what's the plan with the current stoplights and poles, and how, I assume removal, but how soon?
We would take the mast arms and the signal heads down and as quickly as we could, and Will and I would need to figure out how fast that could happen, but I would say the heads would come down pretty quick, and then as we can get the arms down, I'm reluctant to take the mast or the post itself down right away. There's bolts and stuff sticking up out of the ground and footings that we'd need to deal with. There's also a conversation taking place downtown about the potential for some festoon lighting within certain blocks or intersections. City of Sioux City did the same thing. They took some signals downtown, and then they used those 4 bases to they installed new poles, and then did use those for festoon bases for some of the downtown lighting. So I would see the heads themselves and the mast arms that extend out over the roadway coming down fairly quickly. I think they cause some confusion right now. And then again, the posts themselves, I think as this conversation goes on with festoon lighting, just kind of see how that transpires.
Any other comments?
I'll
Council?
just say too, with Scott, the sound has been dramatically different. And also the last week, 2 weeks, we've had beautiful weather and the foot traffic has increased immensely downtown. And on those two intersections, just yesterday there was one person in each intersection walking around. So I think if safety is there, foot traffic is only going to increase with increased business. So I'm obviously in favor.
Yeah, one thing I want to point out on that is on the agenda packets, you'll see these charts. These charts come off of the technology that we have at First Street. So the signals themselves, we can count bicyclists, we can count pedestrians, we can count buses, trucks, cars. It distinguishes those as it goes through that intersection. And so there's some really good metrics there. Long term, one of the things that we hope to do is see an increase in pedestrian traffic down there.
Any other comments?
Oh, if it's, I guess it's just a comment, but I obviously voted no for this in the beginning, and probably still not a huge fan of it. But the true fact is we have people here in support of it. We have downtown businesses in support of it. We have testimony from somebody that uses it, and quite honestly, I had nobody say they didn't want it. Zero. I had 0 emails, 0 phone calls. Nobody here tonight yet that has said no. I want to keep the stoplights. So in that case, it seems like it's a win-win for downtown and pedestrians, and it's a good thing. So
Kind of echo what you said. I was a no last time too, and I was a no way back when we tried it the first time. I think some of that came back from when we tried it last time. Downtown has changed so much since then, because we did it last time. I did get calls saying this is horrible. I can't, and business owners downtown some of them at that time were upset about it. And now fast forward, I think that was 16 or 14 we did that?
16.
16, yeah. Let's fast forward, and here we're today, and it's a total different feel. And I had not one person say to me, we need those lights there. Everybody was, I want the stops. I like the 4-way stops. I like the way that everything flows. I can walk around. And so, yeah, I'd agree. I was a no.
one more thing to add to that, you add on top of that, there's, I believe, 2 more businesses on Norfolk Avenue and 1 just around the corner. So 3 new businesses that are going to be going downtown very shortly. That's going to have even more foot traffic. That between 2nd and 3rd is going to be amazingly busy. So don't plan on parking on Norfolk Avenue. Just use Madison or Broad.
Well, I think, Councilman, to echo what you said, the difference between then and now is pretty stark, and that has to do with the continuing evolution of downtown and new business activity and people wanting to be outside. I commonly tell people, yes, we have an outdoor mall. It's called our downtown because that's what it's become, and the energy and the activity and the vibrancy there, I think, is greatly assisted by car traffic moving more slowly. And doing this accomplishes that. It gets people to pay full attention to their surroundings, and that's good for our businesses as well, and it's good for pedestrians. So I'm glad we went through the process, and I'm glad we went through a studied process to get here and have some numerical data to back this up. I think, Steve, to your point, as we continue to collect our data, we'll continue to see more foot traffic downtown. I don't think we need a study right now because you can just see it and feel it. There's more people moving on foot around our downtown and circulating among the businesses. So in my mind, that's all a good thing. Any more comments or discussion on this, council, before we vote? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Okay, item 27, look for a motion to consider approval of amendment number 2 to the engineering services contract with Shimmer Associates Incorporated for the Benjamin Avenue 13th Street to First Street project, resulting in an increase of $78,100.53.
I'll make a motion for consideration.
Second.
Motion and second. And for some background on this, we'll hear from Anna, our new engineering assistant. Welcome. Her debut appearance before the council.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me. So the contract with Shimmer and Associates is for their construction services with the Benjamin Avenue project. And the project is started today. So this would be an increase in their original contract value for continual as needed services for the Benjamin Avenue project. Shimmer was the design engineer on the project, along with and that has some funds in there also for the landscape architect that was working with them as well. So if we need anything looked at, consideration from them, that would be under this amount of $78,100.53. And I know there's 3 different items here, but they all kind of coincide with this Benjamin Avenue project. So I can speak to that on that now or the next one. So
We can hold off for now. Any questions on this part of it, council? For Anna or for Steve on this? Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 28, I'd look for a motion to consider approval of a task order to the master service contract for construction engineering and inspection services with JEO Consulting Group Incorporated for Benjamin Avenue reconstruction and First Street Bridge and in-stream improvements projects for an amount not to exceed $798,900.
I'll make a motion for consideration.
Motion and second, and yes, Anna, some more background on this, please.
Okay, so we've contracted with JEO Consulting Group. There's been a lot of projects between the city and JEO Consulting on construction services, engineering and administration. This amount, the total amount of $798,900 is for both the Benjamin Avenue reconstruction project that's underway, along with the First Street project that will be underway in the coming months. And that's broken down with $566,730 for Benjamin Avenue. And this would have JEO representatives on the project almost daily to oversee the contractors and consult us when need be, but they would take care of day-to-day. When looking at the total amount here, when you break it up, looking at a lot of our past projects, a lot of our past projects have been, somewhere in about 10% of the total construction costs has gone to construction management cost. So 25th Street and Benjamin to US 275, that project came in at about 10% for that construction management cost, as well as another project on Benjamin Avenue, 13th to 25th Street, Legacy Bend, that was about 11% for construction management. Now, if you look at this for Benjamin Avenue, if you take JEO, their construction administration, along with Shimmer and another testing company that will be involved, you take that total, divided by the total construction cost, we come up with about 4.9% of that total construction management costs. So overall, it's smaller percentage than we've had in the past, so. And then same for First Street. If you break this down for the First Street, construction management cost, it comes in at about 4.1% of the total construction cost for the project.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Any questions on this, council? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 29, I'd look for a motion to consider approval of a testing services contract with Certified Testing Services Incorporated for the Benjamin Avenue from 13th to 1st Street project for an amount not to exceed $78,000.
I'll make a motion of consideration.
Motion second, and once more, Anna, some background on this, please.
Okay. This is for certified testing services for the Benjamin Avenue project from 13th Street to 1st Street. And this would be for materials testing, so subgrade, concrete testing, things of that nature. They are coming out to provide those services on this project. The amount is not to exceed $78,000. It's per hour, per test type of contract with them, with the testing service. But we are also, we're going to have CTS on this project. And like I talked about before, this kind of rolls in, you know, it's a budgeted expense, and it is also within that number of getting that 4.9% of the total construction cost.
Okay. Thank you, Anna. Any questions? Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
You're off the hook. Thank you, Anna. Item number 30, I'd look for a motion to consider approval of change order number 3 with Perry Reed Construction LLC for the City of Norfolk, Norfolk Transfer Station Site Improvements Project, resulting in a net increase of $92,695.10.
I'll make a motion for consideration.
Second?
Motion and second. Steve Ramus, Public Works Director, for some background on this, please.
Mayor and council, this is on the transfer station project, which was previously awarded at about $4.5 million. I could read it exactly, $4,350,000 back on May 17th of 2021. Subsequent to the initial low bid, we did issue another change order number 1 on September 7th, resulting in a change order of, or a new contract amount of $4,444,815. This change order here is we've been working through the project as staff, and continuing to look at how we manage what we call the residential yard waste drop-off, how we handle the residential drop-offs that are coming up to the tipping floor itself. Subsequent to the design and bidding of this project, there's been a desire by staff to make some changes in terms of how the traffic is flowing. The changes here, and I could walk through them a little bit here, but these changes here in general are providing some separation greater ability for us to separate the residential traffic out to the tipping floor from the commercial hauler traffic that's headed to the tipping floor. Number 1 specifically is addressing some grading and additional paving related to that. Number 2, so number 1 is more related to the tipping floor, how residences and commercial haulers are going to access the tipping floor. Number 2 are some changes to how we manage what we call hot loads. Every now and then a load will show up, and either when it gets there or as we're dumping it, there'll be some reaction that results in a fire. And so when that happens, we take that to an area. Currently, we just take it out there and dump it on the ground. With this project, we've got an area, there'll be a concrete area with a drain and fire hose and stuff like that that we can put the fire out with. So number 2 is moving that hot load area, and then it's also adjusting how we move residential traffic flow as well as any commercial traffic flow out of the normal yard waste drop-off area to that southwest corner. Number 3, the way it was originally designed, the maintenance building, as you came out of the east side of the maintenance building, we were pushing all of the truck traffic south via a very small access road that accessed a larger parking lot where we keep the trailers. That, in hindsight, that didn't make a lot of sense in terms of the way traffic flowed. So number 3 is providing a direct access to South Chestnut. So as you come out of the maintenance facility, you're not making this very awkward S and a big U-turn to head north and get out of there. You come out of the maintenance yard, you directly access Chestnut and move north. Number 4, one of the things will be, as we open up the modifications, there'll be an after-hour yard waste drop-off. It'll be directly adjacent to what has been the hazardous materials building, kind of north of the old scales. Once we close down in the evenings, that after-hours yard waste area would be open to traffic. We're not exactly sure right now where that's going to be open 24/7 or whether that would shut down at a certain time at night. As that yard waste, again in conversations in hindsight, as that yard waste area fills during some of the higher summer months, we anticipate that'll fill up a lot. As that fills up and starts to overflow, it's going to be difficult for vehicles to get in and out of that space. So we're widening, we're doing a little bit of additional concrete work in there, and we're going to widen the approach into that, provide about another 15 feet, I think, on that approach, just to accommodate when those bays fill up. We can still get traffic in and out of there. Number 5 is some perimeter fencing. We've modified the perimeter fencing up in the northeast corner of the transfer station as a site for a future recycle facility, and we anticipate that facility would sit outside the fence, and so we've modified the fence and tied the fence in up along Monroe Avenue. We've also fenced off the hazmat building from the rest of the site, and then we've added a gate in there. So that's what's being accomplished in number 5. The total of these changes is $92,695.10. I would say the bulk of that is owner-requested changes. There is a small portion of that where we feel there might be some design issue, and we'll be visiting with the designer on that to see if we can't recoup that from them. In addition to these changes, and I realize this is a big number here, and this would be funded out of our solid waste budget, our reserves that we carry in that budget. We're also currently pursuing about a $35,000 change order, somewhere north of 30, somewhere right around 35, that we'd be bringing to the table for consideration in early May. But so it's not all ads we're looking at. We are looking at some deducts out there as well to kind of help us offset this and manage the project.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions? I'm almost afraid to ask. Questions, comments, council? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Right, item number 31. Look for a motion to consider ordinance number 5771, authorizing issuance of highway allocation fund pledge bonds in the principal amount not to exceed $21 million to fund various street improvements.
Second.
You guys are quick on the draw tonight. A motion and second for some background on this. Randy Gates, our city finance officer, please.
Yes, we had this in the capital improvement program with $11 million in the current fiscal year and about $4.5 million in the next fiscal year, which totals up to about $15.5 million. Interest rates have been rising. They've settled down just a little bit here the last few days, but there's expectation of continuing rising interest rates. So we're planning on doing this as a single bond issue in the current year, trying to get that bond issue out there before interest rates rise anymore. These projects funded by these bonds, 2 of them were bid awarded at the March 7th council meeting, the 2 biggest ones, and they both came in substantially higher than what we had in the budget. Benjamin Avenue and the First Street Bridge project. And because of this, we thought it wise to take a look at the other 2 projects that we're funding with this bond issue and raise the amounts we're requesting to bond from what we had in the budget. Those other 2 projects are 8th Street from Michigan Avenue to Omaha Avenue, and Michigan Avenue from 7th Street to 10th Street, and from Wood Street to 13th Street. The total increase for all 4 of these projects is about $4.7 million in additional bond proceeds needed. This gets total project cost up to $20,211,000. It's broken down as $15,350,000 for Benjamin Avenue, $2,306,000 for the First Street Bridge, $1,505,000 for Michigan Avenue, and $1,050,000 for 8th Street. The bond issue being authorized by this ordinance is for up to $21 million of bonds. This allows for cost of issuance and the possibility of bonds being sold at a discount. This bond issue will be done as a competitive sale, with Piper Sandler acting as the city's financial advisor. Interest rates will be based on the successful bidder's submission, not to exceed a true interest cost of 4%. We don't expect interest rates to actually be that high. We're actually expecting, and Bruce Leffler's here from Piper Sandler, and he can talk to this better than I can if you have questions, but somewhere around 3.1 if we would do that bond issue today. We're probably looking at actually putting this out for competitive sale around April 20th, so those interest rates will probably change somewhat. Staff recommends passage of this ordinance on all 3 readings so we can get this ready to go to competitive sale. And as I mentioned, Bruce Leffler from Piper Sandler's here, and either he or I should be able to answer any of your questions.
Okay, thank you, Randy. Any questions? I think we've all heard pretty well detailed plans and outlines for those major street improvement projects the last few weeks. If no discussion, short title, please.
An ordinance authorizing the issuance of Highway Allocation Fund pledge bonds of the city of Norfolk, Nebraska in the principal amount of up to $21 million for the purpose of paying the cost of constructing certain street and related improvements, authorizing officers of the city to designate the final terms of such bonds within certain parameters, prescribing the form of said bonds, pledging funds to be received by the city from the state of Nebraska Highway Allocation Fund for the payment of said bonds, providing for the levy and collection of taxes to pay the same if necessary, authorizing officers of the city to award the sale of the bonds to the bidder providing the most favorable bid to the city at public sale, authorizing officers of the city to make arrangements for the sale of the bonds and to designate the final terms, rates, and maturity schedule for said bonds within stated parameters, and providing for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Thank you, Brianna. Please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance number 5771 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion, since there's no discussion, or objection to this, that we suspend the rules and waive the second and third readings.
I will second that.
Motion and second to suspend the rules and approve on second and third readings. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance number 5771 carries on second and third.
All right, last but not least, under administrative reports, item number 32, our public safety annual report. I believe we're hearing from our Assistant City Administrator and Public Safety Director, Scott Cordes. You guys love it when we put you at the end of a 2-hour meeting, huh?
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and absolutely in the spirit of time, I promise I'll be brief. I'll get the two experts up here in just a moment. I appreciate the opportunity to have this forum because it gives me the opportunity as the head of that department to complement the work that Chief Raggi and Chief Miller are doing. I get to see that firsthand. I get to work with them daily on issues that they're challenged with. And I see two fine men dedicated to their service to this community. I'm proud of them both. I'm proud of what they stand for. The men and women that make up those public safety divisions are a true asset to the community, and I'm proud to be associated with them. So this serves as an opportunity for me to publicly thank them. And the second part of that is about all of you. And I don't ever want this to be taken for granted because in nearly 40 years in the public safety business, state and local government, I've been around the block a bit, and I've seen it when it works and I've seen it when it doesn't. And what I mean by that is you can do all the great things with those fine gentlemen I just talked about and the people that work for them, but without the support of the governing body, without a true legitimate support of the elected officials, they can't carry out their mission. It simply can't be done. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at the financial pie that we use to distribute the tax proceeds of this community and see the major slice that public safety takes up. It's an expensive venture. So the courage and the conviction that you all have to fund that in the manner that you do, at the level that you do, to provide that service to the community is directly proportionate to the benefits that the community receives on the end of that. And so I don't ever want it to be said that we don't say thank you to each and every one of you for making those kind of decisions. It makes it easy to do the job when you know that you have the support of the elected officials. So on behalf of each and every one of the men and women that make up the Public Safety Department, I want to thank you for having the courage and conviction to do right by the citizens of Norfolk by showing that support. It makes Administrator Colvin and I's job and the whole administrative team much easier when we get to deliver on those kind of goods to those people so they can carry out the mission. So with that being said, thank you very, very much for that legitimate effort for us. Chief Miller, please come forward, followed by Chief Raggi.
Hello, Mayor and Council. I'm not going to, for brevity's sake, I'm going to echo a little bit about what Assistant City Administrator Scott Cordes said. It's the support of the elected officials, and I'm going to expand on that. It's the support of the elected officials and our community. We're very fortunate to have a very supportive community in Norfolk, and that has to go with one of my first points. You guys have the reports in front of you. I'm not going to read it to you. You guys can do that on your own. I want to touch on a couple of highlights of things that are there, kind of give you a quick scenario of some of the things that we've been doing through 2021 and a snapshot of what we're looking for in 2022. Last year, one of the things people always look at is criminal calls. And last year, our criminal calls were down 8.9%. And that's continued for about the last 20 to 30 years. Every year, I think we've hit bottom, it's going to start going up. And it hasn't. We continue to have a lower and lower crime rate. And that speaks to, we do our part, but that speaks to the citizens. Our citizens insist and they demand a great community, and we have that. And they're willing to get involved when we do have problems, which is how we solve crimes. We can't solve crimes if our communities aren't getting involved in helping us with that. Our non-criminal calls were up 13%, and just to give you an idea, our total calls were up 20, or our total number of calls that we answered in 2021 was 20,527. You can do the math, but that's a lot of calls every day. Our non-criminal calls are up, and those are things like assist other agency. We have a great working relationship with Norfolk Fire, Madison County Sheriff's Office, State Patrol. And because of that relationship, they call for assistance on things when they need extra help in the area. We're heavy into trying to help wherever we can. This is probably the It's been several years, and if not longer, that this year we didn't have a single homicide or a fatality accident. And that also speaks volumes to the community, and it's a challenge, but I'm happy to say that we haven't had any fatalities in those manners. When I talk about the police, there's more than just the police. We have 3 different entities that we're dealing with. We have the police department, we have our dispatch center, and we have our our city jail. And last year we had 699 people that we held in jail. That's up 7% from the previous year. You know, sometimes with the previous year and COVID and all the things, it's kind of hard to judge it accurately, but that's the measure that we have to deal with. Our calls are still up. Our main calls are still disturbances, thefts, drug calls, criminal mischiefs, and child abuse. So you can go through all the stats. That's the extent of the stats that I'm going to throw at you. But I want to talk a little bit about the extra things that we do. People think, okay, they write tickets, they make arrests, that's what the police do. In addition to that, we have a detective unit, and most of you realize this, but I want to say it for the record. And our detective unit consists of 4 criminal investigators and 1 drug investigator that's full-time. That full-time drug investigator works with the Snare Drug Task Force. They focus on upper-level dealers, not the entry-level stuff. So when you look at their numbers, it might not look like they have a lot of numbers, but it can take years sometimes to build those high-level drug offenses. We also have one of our detectives assigned to the Attorney General's human trafficking task force. And they work with throughout the state. He's a state deputy sheriff, and he works throughout the state doing investigations as they need help across the state. We also have 2 school resource officers, and one of the things people talk about resource officers, I talk to people in other communities, and sometimes they struggle with the idea that people don't want school resource officers because it's just a way to get juveniles into the criminal justice system. Well, our school resource officers is just the opposite. We had right at 2,500 interactions with students last year with our school resource officers in the school system. Of those 2,500 contacts, there was only 72 criminal cases and 34 citations. The rest of them were counseling, referrals, getting them involved with the right services so that they can stay out of the criminal justice system. And our system has been very effective for many, many years. Big thing for last year is we were able to replace our canine. You guys know the story. Our canine retired. Couldn't get one from overseas. We finally had one come available. So in 2021, we replaced our canine. And both the canine and the handler spent 14 weeks in Grand Island. And the day he came back from Grand Island and went full service, he made a drug arrest using the dog. The dog's been a very great, very effective tool. We've had a lot of deployments and a lot of success with the dog so far, but that was new for 2021. Also in 2021, we have a tactical response unit. We've had one since about 1996. Sheriff's Office has had one since a few years after that. I'm going to guess about 1998. And Sheriff Volk and I started talking about the need to join those to combine our resources. So beginning of last year, we combined, and you guys signed an interlocal agreement so that we can have one tactical team serving the entire county and better use of our resources. Also, last year we started our bicycle unit, and sometimes I talk about bicycles and people say that, they kind of chuckle and say it's not that big of a deal. Well, bicycles are a phenomenal tool, and you can't just give an officer a bicycle and send them on their way. You got to train them and do it right. But our bicycles have been a very effective tool both in the day and nighttime. Riding up onto crimes, patrolling parks, special events. They're a great tool that's really working out really well. We have an accident investigation team. These guys and gals are trained in advanced accident investigation for large property crimes or fatalities. And we also have assisted state patrol when they've had ones out in our area. We have an honor guard to represent the police department. And then those are the extra things that we do on top of the normal writing tickets and making arrests. Also last year, of course, we had the annexation. So both our dispatchers and our police officers had to adapt to the extra land that we brought in because it still has to get patrolled. And the dispatchers are taking calls in that area. That brings me to my dispatch center. Our dispatch center, prior to the changes, they brought in 9,748 911 calls and 61,703 incoming and outgoing calls in our dispatch center. Again, you can do the math, and that they stay busy. Well, again, the sheriff's office had a dispatch center. We have a dispatch center. We joined those last year, which was a kind of a major undertaking between dispatcher or between hiring extra staff, trying to figure out where we're going to put them, and budgeting. And October of last year, we joined our dispatch centers, and we've been taking over dispatching for Madison since. We now dispatch for all of Stanton County, all of Madison County, which includes 18 different agencies that we dispatch for, not including weather and other things that our dispatch centers take care of. We recognized that we weren't going to fit in our current place, so we started renovation planning last year, and we gave up our classroom, our conference room, and our police station to start building a new dispatch center. We're going from 3 stations to 6. 5 of them will be fully operational. The 6th one gives us a little bit of room for expansion. We have a records unit that takes care of our all of our animal incoming and outgoing animals, animal licensing, UTV registrations, all of our towed vehicles, all the police officer reports, reporting to the state, and tracking our training. Law enforcement people say, you know, that some people don't think you get a lot of training, but I can tell you that we train all the time. It takes a lot of training to get into law enforcement, and we allocate at least 6 hours every month for every police officer every 28 days for advanced training. So we stay busy on all these different things. With the dispatch renovation, we started that. Now I'm coming into 2022 and some of the plans we have going on. About a month ago, we got our new dispatch center along far enough that we could move into it. So we're dispatching out of our new dispatch center. We're still having desks are still on order, and there's a lot of things that are on back order, but we're getting there. Within a month, we should be fully operational or finished in there. We are fully operational in there. And with that, going into 2022, our police station, as some of you know, is getting tight. So we're starting architectural work for a phase 2 addition to our police department to accommodate some of the needs that we have going forward. We're also continuing to work with additional programs with the sheriff's office to continue our ability to work with other agencies going forward. And we're working on dispatch regionalization, where we are going to share not dispatchers, but dispatch hardware, software with the Northeast Nebraska region. And the biggest challenge that I'm going to have going forward is staffing. You guys have heard this before as well. It's not just a Norfolk problem, it's a national problem. And we can continue to try. We're always trying to find good quality people. The reality is that 4 out of the 5 of the last officers that have left didn't leave because they didn't like Norfolk PD or didn't like something there. They left because they got out of law enforcement. So unfortunately, that's a trend. We are going to continue to try to fill those positions. But I mean, the reality is it's going to be very difficult. So that's a quick summary of everything. I'm not going to read it to you, but I will be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
We appreciate you.
No questions. You can tell it's the end of the day.
All right. Thank you.
Mayor and Council, thanks for having us here. It's been an adventurous year, to say the least, year and a half. 2021 saw a lot of changes in the fire division, and easily the most notable thing that we dealt with was the loss of our leader for the last 10 years coming over here to this building. And fortunately for us, he's still in the area. And over a career, you don't see that very often in the fire service, or you hope not to see a change in that position. I've seen it twice in my career, and both of those men are here tonight. Both of those men served the fire department very well and set it on track to be very successful. And that's what I've been tasked with, succeeding our public safety director, Scott Cordes. And fortunately for us, when those types of things happen, the boots on the ground that we have are second to none. And they didn't skip a beat or miss a beat. All I need to do is figure out what they need to be successful and try to lead them in the same direction that those before me have done. And that's what we're trying to do, and Assistant Chief O'Brien's been instrumental in helping that along the way. So some highlights for us. We're fully staffed right now. We spent a lot of 2021 figuring out things and promotional processes, which got us to our new Assistant Chief, Trevor O'Brien, new Lieutenant in Brock Soderberg, and then a new hire in Chris Kneifel. This year, as recent as just a couple days ago, we brought on the next fire marshal that will be coming in behind Terry Zwiebel in July when Terry retires, and that's Sean Lindgren. And then Lou Siefker, who's going to be coming in as our next code compliance official, replacing John Coba, who's been here for a long, long time as well at the health official position. So they're both going to be in training the next couple months and going to be doing great things for us, continuing to do great things for us. We had a firefighter medic that was deployed to the Middle East for a year. We got him back, which we're very grateful for that. Bryce Heinrichs returned home to us this past summer. And while he was away, we were very humbled to find out that he nominated Norfolk Fire for the Pro Patria Award, which is presented annually for employer support of the Guard Group. And that's not possible without us knowing, and Chief Cordes at the time knowing, that you all have our back when we do those types of things, when we support his absence and we support our military men and women that are serving our country. We're very glad to have him home. We awarded a bid for a new ambulance. If somebody has any idea on when the Ford chassis are going to become available, I'd love to hear that. Training and PR events have been more normalized, so we've been able to get our building officials out and do some inspections and interact with the community, get into the classroom, allow tours to come back in to an extent. Those are things that we missed deeply during the pandemic, not having that social interaction inside our four walls and allowing our families to come down and see us. So we're very excited about that. We expanded our capabilities in swift water again this last year, did a few training burns, attended some medic refresher classes, hazmat training, working with Chief Miller and Sheriff Volk to expand our capabilities in the drone world. We're all really excited about that. The biggest thing for us that we took away from 2021 is we kind of thought calls would maybe level out after 1920. We hovered around 2,400. In years 2019, 2020, correction, 18, 19. Then we saw a year that was 2647. That was our highest year total. That was 2020. So 2021, we were thinking maybe we'd dip back down, and we didn't. We actually hit 2992. So we kind of blew by that and finished up just short of 3,000 calls, which was something maybe we didn't expect. But we're learning that it's a trend across the country, and it's something that we're probably going to continue to see. So we're adjusting as necessary. Our staff has been extremely resilient in handling the extra call. Our law enforcement partners here in Norfolk and surrounding entities such as State Patrol and Madison SO and Stanton have been very, very helpful to us. They're always great folks to work with. Our reserve program is going strong under Chief O'Brien's leadership. Our front office staff, health officials, fire marshal, and our emergency manager have all been great help to us. And most importantly, our families. They've been through each of us through thick and thin, and they continue to support us in our mission. And without them, our administration, and all of you folks, it'd be pretty tough to be successful. But we're surrounded by some of the best, and we're very grateful for that. So thanks to all of you, administration, our council, our rural boards, for supporting us, and we'll continue to serve the best we can. Any questions for me?
Questions?
All right. Yes, sir.
Sake of this evening, but your rescue calls, I did notice that in 2020, they were 2293. They went up to 2604. Any feel as to why that's?
So the numbers that we saw, that 2647 was the highest call volume we had, aside from a year where we went like 24 or 25 or something around there. And then we obviously know COVID had part of that. But once COVID started to level off and we hit that 2,992 mark, that was a little bit concerning to us because we felt like the COVID calls had diminished a little bit. But what we're seeing is an aging population. Those same folks that sometimes would be in an assisted living or a nursing home or staying home longer, and they're relying on family or 911 services to help them in their time of need, and we're happy to do that. We're also noticing substance abuse is becoming more of an issue. I don't know, and I can't say for sure if that's directly related to some of the confinements and the things that we dealt with the global pandemic, but we know that that did have some effect on society. So we're just gradually dealing through that, and our counterparts across the state and the country, in fact, are seeing the same things. So we know it's consistent. This year started out with a bang too, but it did kind of level off last month. So we're very interested to see how we finish out 2022.
Any other questions or comments? I think, well, everybody's still here. For Scott and both chiefs and the previous public safety director before Scott, I'd like to sum this up for the council that the confidence that we show in you is not by coincidence. I've said this before. It's because there's been a tradition of service and excellence that's been enculturated in our public safety divisions. And we recognize that you have hard jobs. You encounter and engage with people sometimes in the most difficult circumstances of their lives. And you do so, and you've shown and demonstrated to us that you do so with professionalism and fairness and respect and dignity for all. And that's pretty important in a community. It's pretty important for elected officials to have that kind of confidence in their public safety officials. So thank you. Thank you for what you do. And with that, unless there's any other comments or discussion to be had, that concludes this meeting of the Norfolk City Council. We are adjourned.